Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So as you know, the crawler for the most part is done. Some little touch-up paint things here and there and whatnot, but the next big hurdle is going to be to get the blade cleaned up, repaired, fixed, whatever, and installed back on the tractor. So I'm going to go through the hydraulic system with you in this video, basically the components, what I plan on doing, some things you might run into, and basically the plan ahead for getting the hydraulic system and the blade set up and ready to go to be installed back on the crawler. So pretty much every hydraulic system for most tractors are going to be pretty much the same in terms of the basic components, right? So for this system, there's a tank, right? So this is my hydraulic fluid holding tank, if you will, and this is going to be my medium for supplying hydraulic oil pressure to the cylinders, right? So let's just say the tank is full of oil. The next step is the oil is going to be taken out of the tank. Now this hard line here, you can see, is a long pipe that goes down into the bottom of the tank. So this is your suction line. The suction line is always going to be a hard metal type pipe. If it's a rubber hose, it's going to basically collapse in on itself and you're not going to get any oil. So the hydraulic pump is going to pull oil out of the tank through the suction line and into the hydraulic pump. This type of pump is it's a gear type pump, so it's a positive displacement pump. So it's going to put out pressure pretty much no matter what. There's no relief valve on this pump. The way this system works with the relief is, as the hydraulic pressure comes out of the pump, it's going to follow this line, which on this end the hose is broken, but it'll go into a hose, which the supply side, the pressure can be a hose now because it's pressurized, not a suction, and it's going to go into this valve body assembly. Basically it's going to supply hydraulic pressure to all these valve controls, but if they're not being used at that time, the oil's basically going to recirculate. This line gets hooked up here. It's basically going to recirc back down into the tank again. So with the engine running, this pump is also driven off the front of the engine. It's on the cam, I believe, if I remember correctly. But anyway, so as the engine's running, the pump's turning and constantly moving oil. So if I'm not touching any of the controls, the pump's going to draw from the tank, go through the pump, go to the valve body assembly, and back to the tank again. And it's just going to keep recirculating the oil like that. Once I move the lever, it's going to change the position of these valves inside this assembly, and it's going to port oil to one of two places in this configuration. So you can see there's two ports here, which would be these two hoses. They're going to go down to this number 1 cylinder, right? This one happens to be on the right hand side. So this one is a John Deere 62 blade, meaning it has 2 hydraulic cylinders or hydraulic rams. There's also a 61 blade, which only has 1 cylinder. But this part of the system is all going to be the same. The only difference is, for the second cylinder on the 62, it has 2 more hoses that tap in from the number 1 cylinder and go to the number 2 cylinder. So let's say I want to raise the blade, and this lever here doesn't matter. You can change it so that if you pull back it raises the blade, or if you pull back it lowers the blade. It just depends on the configuration of how you have these linkages set up. But anyway, for this scenario, let's just say I pull back to lift the blade. So I pull back to lift the blade, it ports the oil down to the head end of this hydraulic cylinder, so this bottom end. So let's say this is coming into port number 2 here, and then 2 will also go over to number 3. And on these hoses you can see I have it labeled as 2 and 3. I know it goes into port 2 here and port 3 here. This is 1 and 4. This hose here, labeled 1 and 4. These tags are extremely important. They're just paper tags with some string. You can use the manila tags, anything you want. But it makes it so much easier to know how these things go back together again when it comes time to assemble. Not only do I put the tags, I also write on the fittings with permanent marker, and I take tons of photos, because once I drop these hoses off to get new ones made, I'm basically going to strip down all these painted components and prime and paint, so these numbers will be gone. However, I'll have the digital photos still, so I can look back and see, okay, the tag on hose 1 and 4 connects ports 1 and 4, And in the picture I can see that that's these two fittings here. So just plan ahead, it makes it so much easier. And these tags are awesome. No subliminal message intended here, but if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. These tags are cheap. You can get big, bags of them on eBay or Amazon, whatever. So, all right, back to the hydraulic system. So the pump's drawing from the tank, sent into the valve assembly. We're pouring oil to the head end of the cylinders, and it's going to extend the cylinders out and lower the blade. So now the blade's lowered, I let go of the handle, it goes back into a neutral or float type position, and that oil continues just to recirculate between the pump, the valve body, and the tank. So now it's time to raise the blade. So I'll pull back, however I set it on there. I usually pull back just to raise and push down to lower. That's how I typically like these set up. So now it's going to pour oil through this other valve assembly, and it's going to go through ports 2 and 4. So ports 2 and 4, I'm sorry, 1 and 4 on here. Anyway, they're going to travel down this pipe. There's a pipe on the side of these cylinders on both of them, and it's going to go to the rod end of the cylinder. And it's going to pour oil to that end, and it's going to push the plunger inside here all the way down. If you have never taken apart a hydraulic cylinder, go back to, I think it's on my playlist for my John Deere 420. I pulled apart the bucket tilt cylinders and rebuilt both of those, so you can see what the insides of the hydraulic cylinders look like. And I'll probably forget, but if I remember, I'll put a link to it in the description below to that video. So anyway, that's the basic system of any hydraulic system. You're going to have a holding tank or a sump, the pump, the valve assembly, and then the components that you're working. In this case, it's 2 hydraulic cylinders. This valve body assembly has 2 additional valve ports, and they're not plumbed right now. They have plugs in there, but basically I'll get another lever with the adjustment linkages, and I can put hoses to go back to the back of the tractor with quick disconnects to hook up. In my example, I have a John Deere hydraulic 2-bottom plow. So once I get this blade assembly working, I know the hydraulic system's good and everything works fine. I'll start working on getting additional fittings and hoses and the quick disconnects at the back of the tractor so that I can hook up my 2-bottom John Deere plow, and I'll have hydraulics to raise and lower it. So basically my crawler will have one lever for raising and lowering the blade in the front, and the other lever for raising and lowering the plow that's in the back. They do make these where it's just the 2-valve assembly. So if you have that on your crawler, then you're not going to have that additional function to be able to do a second task, right? And you can use it for many other things too. If you had say a loader on the crawler. So one would be to raise and lower the loader. The other one would be to tilt and roll the bucket that's on the front. So lots of uses. But anyway, that's your basic hydraulic system. Again, the tank, the pump, the valve assembly, and then in this case, the hydraulic cylinders. And as you know, this crawler sat for about 12 years, not used. The hydraulic tank did have good, clean oil in it, and it was full. So I can assume that it's probably in pretty good working order, right? So this pump assembly here, like I said, it's driven off the front of the engine at the cam. It does turn by hand, and when I turn it, I can have oil come out of either the suction or the discharge depending on which way I turn it. So I think this pump is good. I'm gonna take the chance and install it without rebuilding it. These pumps are super easy to rebuild. So if you look on, let's see if I can show this here. I'll try to get a better picture with the camera so you can see this a little better. So if you look on the front cover plate here, you'll see that there are 3 bolts, 3 Allen head bolts here that I can loosen up and pull out. These are the 3 bolts that attach this pump to the front of the engine block. The remaining 5 bolts that are on here basically sandwich this pump together. It comes with 3 different pieces, kind of like a pancake put together. And you'll also notice there's a dowel at each side at the 3 and 9 o'clock position of this pump. That's basically to align the 3 plates. So it's kind of dirty, and I don't have a rag out here. Let's see if I flip it over. There you go. So here you can kind of see the 3 parts I'm talking about. So this back plate is where it bolts against the engine. There's a paper gasket. These are still available. You can get these online. So you have your back plate, the middle plate, and then the front plate here. So when you take these other 5 bits out, excuse me, to take this pump apart. Of course, I'm losing all my bolts, and I kept them in their specific area because they are different lengths. Anyway, I'll get that taken care of. But anyway, when you take this pump apart, be very careful when separating these 3 pieces. They're held together by a large O-ring between the 3 pieces. So there's 2 case O-rings. And then inside this center piece here, you'll see it's kind of figure 8 shaped, and there's 2 gears in here. And it's basically where these 2 spots are here. So you have your input shaft that has a gear on it. That's your driven gear. And then you have an idler gear over here on this side. So just be careful when you separate these 3 cases. They are cast and they do break pretty easy. All of these pumps for the most part are the same for the numbered series. I believe the letter series, so the M, the MC, and the MT, I think the pumps are different. I think they're a 2-piece. But anyway, the one thing that is different with some of these 3-piece pumps is some on this input shaft, some have an O-ring and some have a seal. So just take yours apart first and see what you have before you order a kit. You can get kits online. I think that they're about $215, $220, and it'll give you a brand new input shaft, either the O-ring or the seal. It'll give you the 2 casing O-rings, and then there's 4 bearings. So the front and back side of the input shaft and front and back side of the idler gear shaft in there. It's super easy. Maybe one of these days I'll do a video on it. I'm gonna knock on wood that hopefully it's not for this pump, but really anybody can do it. You just need Allen head to take this apart, rubber mallet to kind of tap around and carefully take this apart. You'll need a inside bearing puller, a small one, to get the bearings out of the front and rear covers, and that's about it. It goes together pretty easy, and there's really not much to it. So just don't forget the paper gasket. Again, those are available. They're like 14 bucks. All right, the valve body assembly. This is the big ticket item here. I am not going to tear into this. Again, I'm going to go through this whole hydraulic system as though it was in working condition, because I do believe that it was. And I might kick myself later for doing that, but that's how we're going to roll. So this isn't going to get taken apart. Everything does seem to function. The valves do, move in and out. Doesn't look like it had any major leaks on there, so we're going to roll with that how it is. The tank, like I said, it held oil. There's no holes in it. It was in pretty good shape. There's a couple dents on the bottom, but it's not going to affect operation. So basically these items are just going to get cleaned up and painted. And then finally is the hydraulic cylinders. Again, this was working when it was parked 12 years ago. It did have clean oil inside both. There was no water intrusion or anything. These cylinders do have some rust and corrosion on the outside where it was open to the elements. I'm probably going to end up tearing these seals up eventually. If they don't leak now, they probably will in the future. I'm just going to very carefully try to kind of buff these down and see if I can kind of get them in a little bit better shape. But again, these cylinders, there's nothing hard to rebuild about these. Basically, you've got 4 nuts. These rods travel the length. You disassemble the nuts. It comes apart, this top piece, the cylinder, the bottom, and then the rod assembly inside. Replace any of the packing O-rings and gland seals in there as needed. And then really just get everything cleaned up. And while you have it apart, like there's a grease fitting on here that goes on the blade end. Just make sure you pull this fitting out, make sure everything's clean. You can replace these grease fittings. They're cheap. You can get a kit on Amazon for 20 bucks with a whole bunch of different sizes. But just to ensure that when you do grease this, that you have nice clean grease going in everywhere. And same thing for the back end as well. So really, for this hydraulic system on this project, everything's pretty much just going to get cleaned and painted, because I do believe that the system was working good with no issues. The only thing really that I have to replace, obviously I have a new gasket I just ordered today that's coming for the hydraulic pump, and I'm going to replace the hoses. So this system for mine with the 62 with the twin cylinders, I have a total of 5 hoses. From my experience, a hose can be anywhere from $10 to $90, right? But those are for longer, larger diameter. These types of hoses, this size and length, I'd look at probably about $20 to $25 per hose to have made. It'll have all brand new fittings, all brand new hose. You don't have anything you have to really worry about. So one thing that I do want to mention about the hydraulic pump on these, the pump can work just fine and provide good hydraulic pressure for raising the blade or whatever other implements you're using. But what can fail inside is this seal that connects the pump with the engine. If that goes, you'll start to see an increase in your oil level in your engine. This is a big problem that's known on like Cub Cadets as well, right? So those hydraulic pumps, when the seal fails internally, you won't necessarily see any oil leaking out, but you will start to see the engine oil level increase. So some people will use an engine oil, vice a hydraulic oil, for these systems. In the event that happens, it doesn't tear up your engine. So just another thing to think about. But that's really about it for this. Just kind of quick walk through all the different components and what my plan is. Like I said, mostly just clean and paint, replace hoses, and install. And I'm going to keep all my fingers and toes crossed that everything works. So I'll continue this video once I get the new hoses and everything's cleaned and painted and we start assembling. I'll show you how to get the pump on, how to put the tank in, the valves, the hoses, and all that stuff. So it'll probably be about a week or two. So this video just continue then, and hopefully we're wearing a different set of dirty clothes. Alright, so here we are a few days later. I've done a lot of rearranging and organizing my little work area over here. I've got the crawler turned around. Yesterday I spent pretty much the whole day moving my number 62 blade and the frame. So it's pretty crazy. The blade, the frame, these two smaller pieces of the frame, and the two hydraulic lift cylinders are like 1,222 or 1,229 pounds. And then the snowshoes that are on the bottom, they allow you to lift the blade up off the ground a little bit. They're like 31 pounds each, so another 62. So like almost 1,300 pounds just for the blade assembly on this crawler. So sometimes I'll go to shows and people ask, why do you bring a crawler but there's no blade on the front? Like, what's the point of having it? You can't do any work with it. Well, sometimes the blade is taken off or left off really for weight savings. To take this crawler somewhere with the blade on it pretty much means I'm probably going to bring just this crawler with the blade on it. Whereas if I have the blade off, I can take the crawler and say Sweaty Betty. I mean, that blade assembly weighs almost as much as another tractor that I have, so pretty crazy. But did a lot this week, so let's see what we got going on. So as you can see here, I've got the hydraulic valve assembly done, the control lever for it as well. I have a new knob to go on here, so just painted over that one. It didn't matter, but all my lines are good. And let's see, over here we got our tank, the pump. Make sure you tape off all these fittings. They are fine thread fittings, and then the gear for the input shaft for the pump. You don't want paint in your oil system. Yeah, got all the lines done, so everything's good to go on the hydraulic side. Oh yeah, both the hydraulic rams have also been painted, and tape off on your cylinder here ain't nothing worse than seeing paint on a cylinder. Little attention to detail goes a long way. So anyway, hydraulic system's cleaned and painted, and onto the blade. So yeah, I brought the 420 home, took the tube bottom off just to kind of get it out of the way, and was able to get the blade frame and the blade moved over here. Blade's not too bad. I don't know, if I had to estimate, I'd say it's probably about 300 or 400 pounds. But this part of the frame, looks can be deceiving. I know one of the other videos I said this thing was solid, but like, it's quite literally solid. I mean, this bar, it's got to be at least 2.25 inches by, I don't know, 4.5 inches, and it is solid. It is not hollow. This is a solid bar. Solid. I mean, this whole thing is just a solid piece of steel. Same with this front one. This one's even bigger. I mean, this is probably a good 3 inches by, I don't know, I'm gonna say that's probably about 4 or 5 inches. It's just a huge mass of weight. I mean, it's not something you can move around. You definitely need a loader or forklift or some type of assistance. But Anyway, this is where we're at. So today I'm gonna tarp off the area, do some grinding on these things. Really isn't too bad. The paint on here is not bad, and it's a dozer blade. Like, it's gonna get scratches and wrecked and ruined anyway. My big thing, I want to go through and take any of this loose stuff off, make sure there's no dirt, debris, oil, that kind of stuff, and we're gonna go ahead and get it painted. So yeah, not worth being too OCD over this, but so that's the plan for today. So hopefully the next time you see this stuff, it'll be green and good to go. So as always, I don't ever give myself enough time for anything. I figured I'd hopefully be able to get these painted today, but that's not going to happen. So what I realized, I'm thinking I just had the blade in the frame, but one, these frames in the front here are these pieces. This one here and this one here. So those actually slide in and out. I'm sorry, it's not hollow or solid all the way through. It's hollow to about back here, I guess. But anyway, those pieces slide in, and you can extend one side and leave the other side retracted, and it's to angle the blade. So I wanted to take those out so that I could properly clean and paint those. And then there's a piece that goes in the front here that swivels, and a piece over there that slides in that curve. That would be the swivel piece, and that rusty thing over there that goes in the curve. And that is to angle the blade left and right, up and down, for like cutting into a hillside or whatever. So I had to take those apart. Then I remembered I have all these clamps I had to wire wheel to hook the blade onto the crawler itself. And to add insult to injury, I have this nice option that's on here. These are the skid plates. So basically, you can see there's a hole on each side, and then there's a long like slit that's in here. So you can adjust these shoes when they're pulled all the way back like this. This wedge is at its narrowest, and I don't know if I can get in here, but anyway, I got this camera on this. There we go. Let's see if we can get in there like that. Anyway, so you got this skid plate here. And it's to raise or lower the blade off the ground. So let's say, I don't know, you're gonna plow some snow. You could set these skids forward so that when you put the blade down on the ground, they just ride on these skids. It's not the whole blade all the way across. So it helps prevent wear on the cutting edge itself, especially if you're in like asphalt or concrete. Anyway, so those are just carriage bolts that come up from the bottom, and they were horrendous, so I had to get the torch out, and I cut all 4 of those off. There they are right there. But I did manage to get the blade cleaned up. Like I said, I'm not worried about going all the way to bare metal with this. If this paint can survive my wire wheel, then it can survive anything else I'm going to throw at it. Let's see, down here, you got the front of the blade. This blade, cutting blade, see it's rounded on the top and the bottom. So this used to be on the bottom. It got worn down. They flipped it, and now that side's worn. So this cutting edge is pretty worn. That side's the same. Sorry, terrible light on this side. But like I always say, is what it is. It's gonna be okay for now. One of these days I may end up doing another video where we'll go ahead and pull that cutting edge off and put a new one on. So, but again, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it tonight. So I'm getting there. Got that done. I got this main frame cleaned up. I've got one of the small frames. This part hooks onto the undercarriage, and the hydraulic cylinders go on here. Like I said, I have these big U-bolts that I have to clean up, and on this side over here, see, even though I have the plastic for my grinding and painting hung, well, it's open so I can get through, but still cover the crawler, prevents overspray, whatnot. But anyway, so here's the other frame, and the old U-bolt is still in there. So, and these nuts are just so corroded on there. I mean, that's basically one piece. So I'm gonna get the torch and zip, cut these off because I've got new ones. So thanks to my buddy Ricky. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for hooking me up with the new hardware. So let me get the torch and cut these real quick. Alright, well, here we are, the next day. Last night I was able to get everything wire wheeled, cleaned up, and hung. I shot some primer this morning, so this stuff should be dry here in a little bit. And we'll shoot some green, and then hopefully this is pretty much it. You can see down here I left the pads, the skid plates or skid pads for the blade green, and wasn't really able to get in there and clean it properly to paint them. So you know, the blade's kind of being supported by these straps and those wedges in there pretty much keeping it from rolling back. So I'm gonna paint the blade, and once I get everything done and assembled, obviously I'll lift the blade and I'll pull those shoes out, and I'll get some new hardware and I'll add those on later. But yeah, not too bad. Everything's primed up, and let's shoot some green. Alright, just wanted to shoot a quick video to kind of wrap this one up. As you can see, everything has been painted in the green. I think I mentioned in the other video, I'm still obviously using the John Deere Classic Green paint, but the Valspar hardener that I used to get from the John Deere dealership is like, they're telling me it's discontinued now. I can't find it anywhere online or whatever, but so still use the John Deere paint, but use the Tractor Supply hardener, and good to go. Firm believer in it. It takes a little bit longer to dry, but it's got a real nice shine to it, you can tell, and nice, hard, durable, scratch-free, resistant finish. So yeah, blade frame, all the little pins and plates and components, everything's painted, and got the hydraulic system in today too. So yeah, I was able to get the hydraulic system in today for the most part. The valve assembly, the lever for controlling raising the blade up and down, the hydraulic tank, which I had so much stuff I had to take apart today just to get this stuff back in. In order to get this tank in, I had to take the battery and the battery tray and this side cover off, get the tank in, put all this stuff back. Obviously there's the return line going from the valve assembly to the tank. This is my supply line coming from my pump to the valves, and then this is the suction line that goes from the tank to the pump. Now the pump, that was another ordeal. Let's get you swung in here and get a little better view. So here's the hydraulic pump. This is the suction line going into the pump, and the discharge line going to the valve assembly. This pump, as you saw, has a sprocket on the back, or a gear that fits into the front of the cam. There's a gasket in here, and there's 3 of these Allen bolts that hold it to the front. It's not the most ideal place. You can see this is probably only about a 4-inch gap. So you're trying to work this pump in there. Half of the pump and 2 out of the, like, I think 7 Allen head bolts have to go on the inside of the fan belt that's in here. The cowling here is in the way, and then the fan shroud. It's just not designed to be pulled out and removed and installed as is like this. I'm sure people have done it. You can do it. It's just not the easiest thing. Trying to get the gear to line up from the pump to the cam is enough of a pain as it is. So I ended up, I'll put a picture up here, but I ended up pulling the hood off, the front cowl. I drained the radiator, pulled the radiator out, and it just made it so much easier to put the pump on. It really doesn't take that much time, maybe an hour or whatever, to do all that. So at least I know the pump got in. It gave me plenty of room to get wrenches on the supply and discharge lines here. Make sure everything was fit properly, not cross-threaded. And good to go. So put the radiator back in and filter back up. So with that being said, the hydraulic system for the tractor is installed. The blade's painted. I even had a little extra paint and quickly shot over my my 3.2 bottom plow for the 420. But yeah, I think we're pretty much where we need to be. So hopefully this week I can get out here and I'll do a new video of how to install the number 62 blade. Maybe you have a crawler and you don't have a blade and you buy one. We'll just go through the process of how to install it, how to set it up, and get all the cylinders in, the hoses, and all that. So anyway, productive week, got a lot done, and this is probably, once this blade gets put on, I have a little touch-up paint to do, and really it's gonna kind of draw this restoration to a close. So yeah, it's been a long time in the making, since last February, but just in time for show season. Got some plow days coming up, some tractor shows, so I'll get some good footage there. But yeah, so once we get the blade on, that's pretty much it for the crawler, and on to the next project. So thanks again for your support. If you haven't checked them out yet, go to my shorts and check out the Can a Crawler Crush It videos. You got some videos of the crawler running over some things, pumpkins, watermelons, basketball. So there'll be more of those coming up too. And now that we have the blade, maybe we can do some guillotine type things. So anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate the support. Have a good week.